Hello, everyone, and welcome to another great Wednesday here for another InEvent webinar series. I was just thinking as that little promo was playing, that's such a great walkout song. And I guess I never really knew that I needed a walkout song, but that's such a good one to have. So thanks to our marketing department for doing that. Well, we're super excited to have everyone today to kind of hear a little bit about the industry trends. And we have a really great speaker lineup here today. But first, a couple just small items for everyone. So on your screen, over on the right-hand side, you do have a couple little tools for you to use. So one is the chat. Two is if you have any questions, go ahead and type in those questions during the webinar here today. If you type the question and it's kind of pertinent to what we're discussing, I'll try to bring that up. If not, we'll hold it to the end and we'll try to answer all the questions we can. So please go ahead and put those in at any time. Second, too, we're also going to have polls. So this is going to be interactive. So we'll have two different polls today and we'll get that going here in just a couple minutes, but we want to make sure that you guys are all interactive as we go through this. Okay, so as we start, the first thing that I kind of asked our presenters for is what they're going to be grateful for, and I thought I would start that off, and then I'll bring our presenters on. So two things I'm going to say I'm grateful for. One is kind of a silly one, but one is my heater fan that's on my feet right now because it's freezing in Chicago, and my man-ugs. So yes, I admit that I have man-ugs, but man, they are warm and they are great. But on a more serious note, I'm very thankful and grateful, this holiday season to be in such a great industry. There's so many great people in this industry. It's so fun. People really are trying to do good things, and we are all really trying to help each other. And I just love the camaraderie that we all have, and being able to see people's faces and make new connections at all the different events that I go to. So thank you to all of you out there that I meet and get to see all the time. I appreciate your time and appreciate you as well. All right, so let's bring on our first presenter here today, Chelsea Freeborn. Chelsea, welcome.
Hi, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm Chelsea Freeborn. I'm so grateful to be on this webinar, first and foremost. And Paul, thank you for bringing that to the forefront because I think gratitude is one of the best things that you can have. And it's one of the best things that my team has at my company. And I'm just so like every event we go into, even though it's hard, we're always really grateful and have a lot of experience expressing gratitude. And it's something we do as an opener, as a team, is like, what are we grateful for? And something we close with during the day. So I'm also really grateful for my family, and I'm very, very blessed to have an amazing family. So that's what I got. Yeah.
It's great. It's great. Well, and tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are.
Yeah, I mean, my name's Chelsea Freeborn. I own a company called Freeborn Productions and Freeborn Studios. I sit as a director for a variety of companies, majority as a consultant, and coming in and building out event and marketing strategy and community and ecosystem development. I've been in the industry for about 17 years. My events usually cross tech, gaming, and Web3 industries, so I really love the nerdy stuff. And in the past, I've worked with a lot of amazing brands and some of the key influencers that we know today. So I'm just, really grateful, like I keep
Yeah,
saying. So thanks.
awesome. Well,
Nice.
welcome, and we're happy to have you here today. All right, let's bring our next presenter, Joel Resnik. Joel, hello. Oh, you're on mute, Joel.
Thank you. All right. Good to see
We'll
everybody.
use that as a clip later, Joel.
Yeah, thanks. The ultimate meme right out the gate. Thanks
That's
so much
right.
for
That's
that.
right.
Well, I feel like I'm in good company with the gratitude piece. Chelsea, similar to you, we like to practice gratitude here at Gathered Voices. And, I was trying to think about this, Paul. You made me rack my brain a bit in advance. And one of the things that happened this year that was really amazing was that I got connected to Liz Latham, who is the co-founder at Club Ichi. She's
Hmm.
also the chief community officer there. And at IMEX, she was actually doing something super important, which was getting people to talk about the sustainability from working within the industry, not just around paper cups and stuff like that, but about the people itself. So to your point, it's about people, it's about connections. And if you're not familiar with Club Ichi, I highly recommend it. It's an amazing
Yeah,
group of people. And I'm just
yeah,
grateful to have been connected with her and to have experienced that. So that's my gratitude that I have for
yeah,
today.
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, that is such a great group to be a part of. So yeah, I definitely endorse them as well. They're a fun group for sure. So and I think on a last note here, and then we'll get into this, but I know Chelsea and I are very grateful that Joel has the best background out of any of us. But I knew I had to mention it. I had to. I mean,
Well,
everyone else
yeah,
thinks about it on the call, so I had to mention it. So good job,
yes,
Joel.
happy.
Way to one up us, Joel. It's okay.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everybody. Just to give a little background on myself, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer and co-founder at Gather Voices. We're a video software technology provider, and we've been around for the past 7 years. We've supported the events industry for the past 5 years, really helping to make user-generated video content this interactive component that drives even more engagement for your events, pre-event, during, and post. So um, I've had some amazing experiences getting into this industry because it was new to me 5 years ago, and just grateful to be a part of it and to be on this session today. So thanks for having me here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, good to have you, Joel. Appreciate it. All right, well, let's pull up our first poll question if we can, and we'll get everyone being very interactive here and
Awesome.
putting that up. So, okay, think I think it's up now. So you guys can go ahead and answer that, and then we'll have those results come up. And so while we have those results come up, let's go ahead. We're going to dive into our first question. We're going to let people answer that as well. So first question is, and Joel, I'm going to ask you this first here, but how have shifting kind of consumer preferences shaped the way we approach, not only event planning, but event planning specifically, and then how do you kind of see this really kind of evolving, maybe next year or even the years after?
Yeah, we're in a pretty amazing time right now in the events industry. I think Reggie a couple of years ago said that we're from Cvent was saying we're going to be heading into the golden era of events
Hmm.
because of what technology is enabling, and the shifting consumer expectations is a real big part of that. You just think about what happens in our personal days in our lives that influence how we impact from a business perspective, whether that's consuming content through your TV or short format content on your mobile device.
Hmm.
In fact, did you know that in 2024, 90% of all internet traffic is short format video? I mean,
Really?
that's just like
Uh,
if you're not aware of that, that's a really, really important factor to keep in mind because
uh,
from an events perspective, we are all focused on capturing the attention of our audiences, whether that's an attendee or that's a potential speaker or that's a partner, an exhibitor, you name it, you want their attention. Well, 90% of them out there are consuming short format content, or that's all the traffic that's happening on the internet.
uh,
Um, YouTube today is 70 billion views on shorts, 70
wow.
billion views daily. And that's daily. Video consumption, people are like 72% of people want to consume video when learning about products and services. So if you don't have a video out there, geez, as you can tell, this is one of those things that continue to drive higher levels of engagement. And I think on top of this short format content kind of push of what people are consuming in their personal lives, that's feeding into business. I'm seeing more companies adopting YouTube Shorts and TikTok as an example, as a
Mm,
way to reach their audiences.
mm,
And just it has that virality aspect. It has the way to kind of capture attention. So I think that's a big thing that's happening this coming year for sure.
yeah, that's great. That's great. Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's so many different trends that are happening right now, especially in like technology. But then also, one thing I've noticed across like the whole entire industry is private equity acquisition of large scale conferences and medium scale conferences and or event agencies as well. So you're seeing this kind of mass consolidation of these independent spaces, right? And you're seeing these really niche conferences being acquired into these large media groups as well as private equity. And I think that's something to kind of be looking at, because what does that mean for the forefront of the industry? What does that mean for what costs are going to be coming and where they're going to be going? And just what we're really looking at and going at. So like GES getting acquired is a pretty big statement, right? And something to look at not only just on the software side, but just on how impactful events overall are, and that what they really mean in all key points of marketing, branding, product, like across all a company's line, you know? And so that's one key aspect that I, really, really want to keep in mind, because as Joel was just saying, like this is the golden era of events. And a
Mhm.
lot of people used to put events kind of in the corner, and it wasn't at the forefront of marketing budgets. And what I've been seeing with a lot of companies is that like they're trying to figure out how to, when they're in their series D and their growth stage, when they finally get that marketing spend, like how do we bridge more brand visibility? And yes, like content is king, it's low cost, and like video content is amazing. And it's one of the best ways that you can strategically place yourself in the market, but it's also very saturated market if it's not done correctly.
Yeah.
And then, so you can do a ton of content as well, but I think that IRL component is really, really massive and is speaking so loudly to what's happening in the space.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think of my own like, consumer ways of the way I consume things too, right? Joel, you were talking about like short videos. Like I'm constantly always watching short videos all the time, right? So
Yeah.
it makes sense that would definitely kind of carry over,
Yeah.
to the work life.
I think there's another really big thing that's happened too, this, post pandemic. I mean, gosh, we're years out from it, but there's a lot of new people that are entering the events industry. And a lot of people that during that time during the pandemic that actually retired. So you have this kind of continued like
Mhm.
newbie syndrome kind of happening to some degree of like
Yeah.
getting familiar with what is an event like when you're there on site and how do you put a great event on, and what about all that knowledge that was lost, or did it get transferred
Hmm.
appropriately? I
Right.
think that's something that's still finding its legs.
Yeah.
And while this past year was better than 2023, like we're growing into that, but there's a need for the industry to continue to support and encourage and educate these younger people coming into this space. And I think that younger audience that's coming in loves the IRL component.
Yeah.
While they
Yeah.
consume a lot of
Yeah.
video content, they absolutely love getting in front of people
Mhm.
at physical at events, but in an interesting way too. It's not our parents' events that they know about that you just go to and there's a happy hour and there's a session where you sit and listen to somebody drone for hours. There needs
Hmm.
to be some interaction. There needs to be personalization. There needs to be something that's unique and different that captures their attention. And I think that's part of that. Like what happens in your real life, fun, unique experiences is what we're looking for. Is going to translate into the events industry as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me get to the poll results here really quickly. What emerging technology do you believe will most impact event design in 2025? So, of course, what we probably all thought: artificial intelligence, 53%; event management software, 23%; virtual and augmented reality, zero goose egg percent; and data analytics and attendee behavior at 23%, which leads us perfectly into our next question. So, what role do you think kind of the data analytics will play in helping event professionals kind of make, better, really informed decisions, right? Chelsea, why don't you want to take that one first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I think there's it's so funny. I kind of get into debates about data analytics and events and like KPIs and like attribution and MQLs and how you have these conversions, especially because I work across sales teams too. And they're like, where are you in the attribution funnel? And it's like, first touch, just like sometimes attribution really isn't measurable in events. And sometimes data is not exactly measurable. Like, oh, okay, you can measure all of your registrars and attendees, but like, what's the direct impact? And back to what Joel was saying, right? Is like these younger generations, like, they're not going to be as convertible like into what the metrics are, especially in a sales cycle. So I think personally we're going to see a little bit of a shift of how we're measuring like our data with events overall, and I think it's going to be based a little bit more, like, I really think at the forefront brand presence and awareness is going to be a lot larger of a conversation than it used to be, and marketing budgets are going to start looking at really how impactful those things are, because experiential is huge, but it's not very measurable, right? Like, you can check the registrars, you can check how many downloaded QR, and there's these like key aspects. Everyone's always trying to find this new way of measuring it. But I really think it's going to be just like the impact of how well your brand does in market. And that tracking sales, I think that model is definitely going to shift. But then you have like platforms like read.ai or otter.ai, which can transform like real time, insights and into engagement and participation during events, especially during webinars. If you haven't used Read AI, excuse me, it's a phenomenal platform that will show your key engagement over calls, over experiences, and then it rates your engagement, like how sympathetic you were being, like how it's just a really great platform. And that data is actually really, really great. I also think one other thing is that UX experience, like user experience and data, need to start matching. And like, for the next generation in general, like, I'm a millennial and Gen Z, like I'm closer to the Gen Z side. So I get a little bit of like, I get to cross over a little bit in there, but user experience is not data, but it can be. And seeing how much you have to click through stuff and how many web pages there are and search, you can hotspot that on your website or in your app and collect that data and really see where people are engaging. And I think that needs to be a forefront conversation for 2025, 2026, especially because everything on events is done online. And I think if they don't start optimizing their user experience, they lose a lot of data that can be extremely beneficial. So that's where my head goes. I end
I
my
love,
rant there.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Back quite a few years ago, I used to attend some UX conferences.
Oh, cool.
I had a product team and development team that I looked after, and so those were super super interesting conferences that
Yeah,
literally told you how to kind of create good user experiences and how to match them up. And man, you are you are right for sure. There are so many different things out there that just don't do a very good job of that. And so
yeah.
yeah, I would agree 100% on that for sure. Joel, what do you think on analytics?
Yeah, ditto.
Hey, all right,
Yeah.
bravo,
Boom.
bravo.
I think Chelsea just dropped the mic. I mean, that was really well said, Chelsea. The reality is there
Thanks.
there is so much data and information. There's going to be more, right? Accessible, like you just talked about the hot mapping of a site or your app or something like that as a data point to bring in. I think the key thing that will be super interesting for the successful groups is how do you take the data and how do you tell the story? And that's on the analytics side, right? And I think that's where if you've got those talented individuals in your team who can pour through that data and tell the story and navigate the business, that's the secret sauce because data is going to be out there. But not everybody can translate that to actionable items. So I would say that's my mindset. It would be around that. Like, cool. How do you have the right people in your arsenal to help facilitate that?
Yeah, yeah, love that. Yeah, I love people that know me and kind of about me. They know I love data. Like, it is just, I love the analytics and everything else around it. So if you're super bored and you have nothing else to do at Expo and you want to talk about data and analytics, come visit me, and we'll have lots to talk about. So yeah, I
Awesome.
absolutely love it. But yeah, it's one thing we as an industry for sure need to get better at. right? We're not there yet, but it's getting there, right? It seems like it's getting better every single year, but yeah, it's definitely got a little ways to go for sure. Okay, next one is for on the economic side. So, how do you see kind of we're all getting hit, especially on the consumer side with rising costs. How do you see the rising cost of resources and venues and different things like that kind of impacting event budgets and kind of their planning of how they do events, and I think I'm going to little add to that there too is how can they do a better job with it, or how can they plan better, or what can they do with that. So Joel, I'll let you take this one here first.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because you're right. Costs have been increasing. There were a lot of contracts that got rewritten for events because of what happened during the pandemic cycle that are still being cycled through, and that's a reality that people will still be dealing with in 2025. And I also think to Chelsea's point, like events are more and more front and center, and I think there are going to be more events out there for people to potentially participate in. So I think there's going to be some growth in the number of events, even though there's some consolidation happening. I think that that's a possibility. And then I also think that um, not only will there be that component, but people are going to have to figure out, pick and choose which ones they go to. I think organizations are going to be looking at the expense line of T&E and saying, "Hey, in this next year, there are going to be some things that change.
Hmm.
Tariff impacts, you name it. Like there are going to be things that just are unpredictable and they're not sure about, and they're probably going to tighten the leash on that a little bit. So people won't be able to freely go wherever they want to from an events perspective. They're going to have to pick and choose. And I also think we're going to be coming to a point where, you know, people needed to get to back to events and attendance numbers were fantastic these past few years. I wonder if some people are like, cool, I've done the last 2 years and maybe this year I'll take a break a little bit. So I think some of those things could play into the volume of attendance. I think it's
Yeah.
going to create a competitive environment. I think that cost pass through is something that organizations are going to have to think about and determine, you know, is it worth passing along or to the attendee, or are they going to have to think about sponsorship strategies that are a little bit more unique to help offset those costs? And in
Hmm.
the last 6 months, I've had a lot of interesting conversations around sponsorship growth, incremental value, unique experiences, and getting even outside of the event for year-round sponsorship engagement even more.
Yeah.
So that I see that being a real good tool for organizations to kind of pull in to help mitigate some of those potential risks.
Yeah, I feel like just a little bit on that point. I feel like many people are talking about just trying to do better, unique activations, right? For
Yeah.
sponsorship activities to bring people in, right, and to get them, a little entertained, but be able to
Yeah.
network well.
I,
So.
I mean, that goes back to one of those key themes at the beginning of like personalization matters. And
Hmm.
personalization is going to shape the events industry drastically over the next 5 years. Like we're going to see a lot change and a lot happen with that. Whether it's the specific event experiences that people are having, it's the personalization and communications that they're getting around the event itself versus the generic messaging that's coming through, and those immersive experiences for sure. Those are definitely coming into play.
Yeah, great, Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, ditto.
That's our new thing. That's our
Yeah,
new thing. I love it. Ditto.
it's like
Really well.
go with that. Yeah, I mean, there's not like much else I could really add into that, except I really do think that hybrid events. I've seen a comeback of virtual and webinars too, because I think a lot of people are realizing the importance of branding,
Yeah,
personalized branding. Like Joel was saying, personalization is very, very important. And I also think going back into talking about stages of generations, right? Like millennials, Gen Zs, and wherever else we're landing, like they're caught on, right? Like they know when they're being pitched, and they know when like things are not making sense, and they also are very scrappy. I worked with a really great founder community called Maker, that works with founders under 30, and they all raised great capital. And it was a scrappy, amazing community. Like everybody showed up to participate and create a really great experience because everybody wanted to be like part of it, but also it helped level cost. And it was probably one of the most interesting experiences I'd ever seen, especially as being like an event professional and working with like really big budgets and then coming into this smaller community and realizing like how impactful. And they were more keen to go to these like sub niche, really small events tailored to them than
Mm-hmm.
these massive experiences. Into the conversation point too about like there being so many events coming about, right? And I think niche is going to be kind of a lot more important. And I think you know costs are rising, inflation is really really big, and so I think there's going to be a lot of partnerships, like, and long-term partnerships and vendor partnerships, especially on the venue side. Like, I've seen such an increase on cost for venues and it kind of blows my mind, and I'm just like, what is kind of happening here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really have a feeling that it also is going to take some people out. Like, I don't think some people will be able to keep up with the costs
Yeah.
realistically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they'll go to other markets because globalization is huge, as we've seen, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's what everybody wants to be global. It's not just regional, it's not just national, it's not just, the LATAMs, it's like APACs, UAE, and like cross the whole entire globe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of people can't afford that, and so I think a lot of companies will maybe have to rethink about the cost that they really want to spend and the experience that they really want to create. And if it's one very impactful, it's going to take, a big lift. That's
Yeah.
where I'm landing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I always feel like, even with the housing market, don't get me into the housing market, but there's always this bubble, right? Like, we're going to hit this bubble. And I feel like, yeah, just kind of what you talked about, Chelsea, right? Is there that bubble for venues too, that it's like, okay, that's too much. Like, can't do it anymore. Like, got to go off and do something else. So I don't know. We'll
Well,
definitely see, right?
I would jump in too and say like the venues that have been built are these big venues, and I love what Chelsea was talking about, like from these smaller groups getting together. Does a big venue site hold the same need, or does that
Yeah.
change? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big change if more and more people want to get together with smaller groups that are more tailored and couture to the things that they want to talk about. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
All right, let's get to our last poll question. And so, if we can bring that one up for our crew, that would be great. And that one is in 2025, where do you see budgets gravitating towards to maximize planners' event experience? So, kind of almost what we were talking about as we go through this. So, all right, and so as that's coming up, and we'll discuss that. Let's get to kind of the last question that we have, and kind of the fun question, right? Is what are like maybe a top two or three trends, that you will kind of predict or you think will kind of dominate, 2025 and within our industry, and why do you think that is? So Chelsea, I'm going to give you the floor here first.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Joel made a opening comment about sustainability and how imperative that is. And it's also like something really close to my heart for my company. We try to be very, compostable cups go only so far. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
really being sustainable and like module builds, continuous, like if you're doing a road show or how you're kind of coming in brand side or representing a brand, like module consistency. I think that a lot of companies, I worked at an amazing company called Avalanche, which is a Web3 based company. And we built all of these module sponsorship booths that were very, very, very unique. They're like these square, this amazing company out of Lisbon, Portugal helped us build this phenomenal architect named Laszlo, and they were so interesting, and we took them all over Europe and then we replicated them and brought them into like our LATAM marketplace. And it was because we didn't want to have to keep having to rebuild, throw out things. Like all of our backdrops were rebuilt. The cost up front was pretty big, but it really ended up benefiting us in the long run. I also think a hybrid experience and like
Hmm.
AI driven experiences will be pretty big with personalized interaction. And I think attendees expect also, like, I'm a mental health advocate outside of everything else too. And I think a lot of people are wanting events to also be a reprieve. Like, a lot of people get super excited to leave
Hmm.
and their job and get to go onto events. And I think like the mindfulness, the fitness, the wellness and like implementation, like it's not about just coffee anymore. Like give me a Pilates class. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like give me that like a little bit of a different touch point where like I might be with like the CMO of a company that like I wanted to talk to because she was on a panel, but she really needs to get Pilates in, you know? And I
yeah,
think that experience is really going to be defining boundaries of creativity in 2025. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Love that. Love that. I haven't tried Pilates. I've seen Pilates.
It's
It looks
amazing for your
amazing.
core. It's
I
the best.
know it looks amazing, and it looks really hard too.
Like
But
these Pilates moms, you're just like, oh my, like they could, you know, they can rally. I'll just say that.
oh my god, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
I've had
Uh,
the pleasure of being the one guy in a group of 10 people trying to do Pilates and getting my tookish whooped. It was hardcore. It was
nice,
hardcore. It's good
nice.
stuff though.
It's hardcore, definitely.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
sounds fun. No, I don't know. Also, too, just as a reminder, if you guys can go ahead and put any questions that you have in the questions section, and we'll try to get to those questions. All right, Joel, what do you think
Yeah.
in terms of 2025? What's happening?
I think change is going to happen fast, right? I think
Okay.
that's an important thing, and the pace of innovation, the pace of change happening fast, is going to require organizations to think about their communication strategies. I think all those things we talked about earlier, right? Personalization, short format content. These are the things that are good ways to help navigate a
Hmm.
lot of that change that's coming down the pipe and to stay relevant and in front of your audiences, to acquire people, to retain the people so that they don't go to another event, another a thing that's happening.
Hmm.
And I think that idea of that younger audience coming in and the gamification side of it, to give you an idea, like there's, what is the numbers? I was looking at this earlier today. Um, Gosh, it's something like 100, what is it? I don't know. It's drastic. The amount of people who have grown up playing video games and that interactive experience that they
Yeah,
get out of it is
yeah.
something that's that consumer tie-in that they don't want just to absorb information. They want to interact. They want to meet somebody new at the Pilates thing. They want to not just walk into a session and listen for an hour. They want to have a conversation, or they so those different things that are happening, I feel like this concept of personalized communication, sharing constant updates, gamifying their engagement throughout the process are ways to help improve and maximize the events coming up in this next year. And I think there's going to be a lot of amazing tools that are accessible to make that happen, whether it's AI or it's new tech solutions that are entering the marketplace that are kind of challenging the incumbents to do more than what they've always had in place. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see that happening.
yeah, yeah. I think that's great, right? That's how I think all the tech companies and everyone else continue to push themselves a little bit. Is that demand, right? Is that demand of what's needed and what's out there, and kind of what Chelsea was saying, the combination of AI into events. I think that's still a little bit out there. Like I don't know if people fully still know like everything to use AI on and everything else, right? I think everyone's got a little taste of Chat GPT now, and then now they're looking at all sorts of different things. So I think that's still going to kind of continue to evolve. But I think there is a lot of efficiencies in there, for people to be able to utilize too. So it could be good. All right, and now let's get to the results of our poll question. So people said, again, 2025, where do you see budgets gravitating towards to maximize planners' event experience? 28% chose software, outside third party vendors, 28%, venues, 42%,
Rising costs.
analytics, analytics, the big goose egg, right? Those same people said analytics, 18, well, only 18% analytics up there, but those people must have changed their votes and turned it to zero for analytics, right? But no, those are the interesting, but really interesting too for venues, right? In trying to maximize that. So I don't know. Maybe we will see some changes for next year on that part. Okay, so we did have a couple questions in here. So one is, what role does personalization play in the future of event design? and how can planners kind of effectively tailor those experiences for those audiences? Chelsea, you
Uh,
want to take that one since you kind of talked about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. You know, personalization and branding, I think there's one thing, there's a lot of things I'm seeing is that people don't want to just hear about a company, they want to know who's behind the company and why.
Okay.
And I think that personalization and that like segmenting out like a found like for whatever niche, right? Like as we see these veterans like panelists that come on, these CMOs, CEOs, founders, right? Like there's a lot of veteran industry narrative that keeps building, and then they also have their personal brand behind them, and then
Yeah.
they represent a company, and I think that's going to be extremely imperative and personal. Even on the event side, like there's a great event called Possible that Hive, excuse me, had acquired, and the founder's a very interesting person, and like talks and speaks and engages, and like you just are really, really connected to that. I also think that so sales comms, like I love a good HubSpot or like CRM, but I think people have caught on to email comms. Like I don't know about you, but when I open my emails in the morning, I have 50 sales market. I'm like, how did you get my email? You know what I mean? I'm like, who are you? And I'm also like not afraid of like checking my junk and seeing people that are writing me and, like seeing what they're talking
Yeah.
about. But I think we need to look outside of a CRM standardized messaging system that just outbounds to everybody and like really inviting guests. And yes, that takes time. And there's options for deployment, right? There's like superhuman and other things that you could do. But I really think we need to bring back a personal touch. Like for my private clients, I love doing personal invitations that are sent to their house still.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Nice.
blows people's mind. They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, wow." Like they forgot that like you can get a letter in the mail, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, I think
yeah.
that it's, like, similar, and I've seen it, right? Like, I'm functioning with a sales channel right now, and, we did an outbound HubSpot, like, from our CRM, and the click rate was, like, 6%. Kinda normal, sorta standard, kinda low, but here it is. And I was like, "Let's personalize these messages. Let's segment out people we've invited and we wanna talk to. This is post-event." And like write them a message and ask them about their experience, and just it's a lot of outbound 200 65 people each spread across a team, but like let's do it and see where we go. The sales funnel grew, right? And like the where they were in attribution, like to demo to conversation, it completely shifted, and it was just literally like, "Hey Paul, it was nice to see you at KEP executive security summit, and really just wanted to hear what your key takeaways were and how we can maybe bridge this experience to be better for you," and like da 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 da. And then click.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that personalization is it's gonna be a little bit heavier on the teams, but I think that's really important. That's where my head goes. I feel like
Yeah.
Joel might be able to speak a little bit more in detail to it too. But yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right on all those things, and I've actually seen some really good tactics happen with organizations thinking about the audience they want to engage with for the events, and instead of kind of these mass communications of a one size fits all, here's the attendee messaging, here's the sponsor messaging, thinking about those groups in detailed segments because they are changing. They're different ages, they're different demographics, they have different experiences and backgrounds. And one of the important stats that I wanted to share too was that from a personalization perspective, it's like Forrester said half of younger buyers will have included 10 plus influencers in their purchase decision, and 50% will be self service. So, like this idea of the brand constantly communicating and converting, yeah, I think that happens, but I think that so many people want to hear from their peers or hear from people like them that they'll help influence their decisions. So a tactic could be easily getting your different segmented audiences to tell their stories. This personalized story about what mattered to them, why was their value created in that, and being able to share that out. We've seen the organizations that have done that have had increase in click-through rates, increase in conversion rates, and again, your audiences are looking. I mean, it's human nature. Word of mouth has been like the number one marketing thing forever. Just do it on a digital level, right?
Yeah.
So I think breaking out that and allowing other faces of other people telling the value on your behalf of the organization, that's some really good personalization for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that, and you can't go wrong with like case studies and things like that.
Yeah.
So those are always good things. All right, well, we are kind of at time, so thank you both for being on. Truly appreciate your time and your energy today, and all the things you are grateful for as well. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. I encourage everyone to either watching this now or on demand. Feel free to reach out to us and connect with us on LinkedIn and other places, and also too at any of the events too that we're going to be at. So thank you
Hey,
guys for coming
Paul,
to. Yep, sorry.
just
Go ahead.
just real quick, 'tis the holiday season. I'd love to pass along a gift. So I've got a video strategy accelerator course
Nice.
that it's great for events and great for organizations that have member-based communities. And I'd love to put that in the chat to enable people to get that. There's no cost. You're not signing up for emails or anything like that. You'll just
Cool.
get a little bit of basic information. So
Yeah,
happy to
that's
pass that along.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, we'll take that too, and we'll also put it up on social media and put it up there for people to people to be able to have as well. So if
Cool.
Annie or someone can grab that link, and then we'll save that one for later. So
Love that.
cool. All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great holiday season. Enjoy it with family, friends. Don't eat too much, right? But have a good time, and we're really looking forward to doing an awesome 2025, and we'll have some great webinars again coming out in 2025. So thanks for joining us again here today, and have a great one, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Joel. Talk to you guys soon.
Ditto.
Thank